Welcome back to Social Psychology. In our last video, I introduced our wonderful teaching staff, discussed a few unique aspects of the course, defined social psychology, and ended with a brief demonstration of hindsight bias, or the I knew it all along effect. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about how the course is structured and offer some rules of the road just to make sure that our journey together is a positive one. Like, don't park on the yellow brick road. And in just a few minutes, I'll share some exciting news about a feature of our course that I think you'll like. But first, let's talk about how the course is structured. Each week, we'll have a few lectures and related videos, along with some assigned reading. Sometimes the readings will focus on the same topic as the lectures, but more often they'll cover material beyond the lecture so that we get the broadest possible coverage in the short amount of time that we have together. When the lecture and readings do focus on the same topic, the readings will typically be assigned after the lecture. So it's important to follow the order of lectures and readings given in the course syllabus. And of course, to keep up, you'll get much more out of the course than if you skip around or if you do a reading before the lecture it's supposed to follow. The course will have 5 different assignments. The first, called the Random Assignment, will step you through a brief tutorial on random sampling and random assignment, and then ask you to use the randomizer form from Research Randomizer, a social psychology network partner site, to generate your own random sample and to randomly assign individuals in the sample to one of several experimental conditions. In the second assignment, those of you who join Social Psychology Network will create your own page in the network and receive feedback from other class members on the social impression you make. What do other people think of you when they first see your page? And how can you use psychology to improve the impression you make, whether it's on employers, friends, romantic interests, and so forth? For those of you who don't join the network, I'll offer a variation of the assignment in which you create a resume or curriculum vitae and get social feedback from other class members on that. For the third assignment, all you need to do is post 5 times in the class discussion forums, an assignment that some of you have already begun. These posts can be questions, comments, responses to other students, links to outside resources, really anything that contributes positively to your learning or the learning of others. In the fourth assignment, you'll take a web-based interview in which the system remembers every answer you give and asks you personalized questions about your diet and lifestyle choices. The interactivity of this interview goes way beyond a regular web survey to let you see what interview technology might look like in the future. Finally, the Day of Compassion assignment challenges you to use social psychology for the greater good by living 24 hours as compassionately as possible and asks you to reflect on certain aspects of the experience. The assignment will be peer graded, and here's where it gets interesting. Students who complete at least 4 out of the 5 assignments receive a very high score on their Day of Compassion essay, and make sure their account settings allow me to reach them, will be eligible for a Day of Compassion award as a kind of incentive to complete the course, learn about social psychology, and use it for the good of society. I'll describe the award in detail later in the course, but let me say just a few words about it now. The first time that the award was given, the winner was Belish Jindal, a wonderful soul from New Delhi, India, whose Day of Compassion focused on preventing sexual abuse in her community. And part of the award was an expense-paid trip to Northern California, where she had the opportunity to personally meet the Dalai Lama, a symbol of compassion to many people. The meeting was sponsored by Stanford University's Center for Compassion and Altruism Research and Education, and the work was later immortalized when Coursera decorated its building with a drawing they made of Belish and a quote from her about the Day of Compassion assignment. The second time the award was given, it included free airplane tickets, food, and accommodations to meet another world-famous symbol of compassion, anthropologist Jane Goodall, who joined me in presenting the award to Habi Zhang from Chengdu, China, who used social psychology to save a neighbor's child from being beaten, and after taking this course, decided to pursue a graduate degree in public policy. This time around, the winner will receive a free trip to meet another worldwide symbol of compassion, with details on the person, date, and location to be determined. We'll make every effort to choose a date and a place that works for the winner. Or if that proves impossible, one of the 10 class members receiving honorable mention will have a chance to take the trip. So you have a great opportunity to learn about social psychology and use it for the good of others. I'll say more about each of the assignments when the time comes. The other part of the course that's required for learners who want a certificate is the final exam, which will cover the readings, lectures, and other assigned videos. The exam will include multiple choice and true-false questions and be machine graded so that you can see your score right after submitting your answers. If you purchase the course, complete all 5 assignments, and pass the final exam, you'll earn a signed course certificate. And if you complete some additional work that I'll mention later in the course, you'll receive a certificate with honors. Let's pause for a pop-up question, just to make sure this information is clear. I'd also like to say a few words about communication. Even though the course is too large for me or the teaching assistants to answer email, we'll all be monitoring the discussion forums, which is the best way to communicate with us and with each other. Here's one way to think about it. If even only 0.1% of the class were to email me on any given day, that would be over 100 email messages a day, and I would soon be drowning in email. You'd never see me again. So please be good to the teaching staff and don't send us to the bottom of the sea, all right? If you're tempted to email us, here's the image I want you to remember. Okay, maybe that's a little silly, but use the discussion forums. They are as important to the course as the videos and the readings. All I ask is that when you use the forums, you treat people considerately. Whether you're posting or you're responding to somebody else's post, please, no nastiness, no personal attacks, no profanity or ugly language, and certainly no hate speech, which would be grounds for removal from the course. If someone writes something that's insensitive or off base, don't take the easy way out and open fire. Instead, use the forums as an opportunity to help and teach each other, to elevate the discussion. In a letter to one of his students, Korean Zen master Seung San wrote about the power of what he called together action, and I think it fits very well with this course. He wrote, "Together action is like washing potatoes. When people wash potatoes in Korea, instead of washing them one at a time, they put them all in a tub full of water. Then someone puts a stick in the tub and pushes it up and down, up and down. This makes the potatoes rub against each other. As they bump into each other, the hard, crusty dirt falls off. If you wash potatoes one at a time, it takes a long time to clean each one, and only one potato gets clean at a time. If they're all together, the potatoes clean each other." I very much hope that in this course we all become potatoes and learn from each other. 2 final notes before I end this video. First, I want to emphasize that this course is not intended to be a comprehensive or even representative introduction to the field of social psychology. Rather, it's one professor's perspective on the field, focusing mainly on material that's useful, fun, and interesting, and emphasizing classic studies that have laid a foundation for later research. In other words, it's sort of like meeting a new person. If you spend a few hours a week for a month or 2, you certainly get to know a lot about the person, but you probably won't end up knowing every important thing about that person. If you want a comprehensive introduction to social psychology, my best advice would be to get a full-length copy of David Meyer's Social Psychology textbook, which can be purchased as a new book, a used book, an e-book, or even rented. Or take a full-length college or university course in social psychology if you're able. And throughout this course, I'll post suggestions for further reading and viewing, and I hope that you'll do the same in our discussion forums. The last thing that I wanted to mention is that social psychology is not the same thing as clinical psychology which is the branch of psychology most directly focused on understanding, preventing, and treating mental illness and other psychological problems. So if you have depression or other psychological difficulties, my best recommendation would be to talk with a mental health professional. For example, a clinical psychologist, a psychiatrist, a counselor, a social worker, or if that's not possible, someone else whom you trust, someone you feel is safe, supportive, and whose opinion you respect. Social psychologists are not generally certified to provide therapy or mental health advice. But all's not lost. Social psychology can open the door to greater self-understanding and help improve social relationships, intergroup relations, group performance, decision-making, life satisfaction, and many other social aspects of life. That's what we'll spend much of this course on. But first, I want to give you a tour of Social Psychology Network and invite you to become a member. Welcome to Social Psychology. I am so glad you're taking this course. I'm Scott Plouse, Executive Director of Social Psychology Network, which I'll talk about in a later video, and Professor of Psychology at Wesleyan University, a liberal arts university in Middletown, Connecticut, almost exactly between New York and Boston, about 2 hours from each city. Here's our corner of the world. Wesleyan is a private university, non-religious, fairly selective and expensive. But thanks to the magic of Coursera and a decision by the Wesleyan administration, this short course is being offered free of charge to anyone who's interested. So let's hear it for Coursera and Wesleyan. Seriously, Wesleyan has contributed funds for the hardware and software needed to create this course as a sort of experiment in higher education and, of course, as a public service. To help administer the course, we have terrific support staff behind the scenes and a wonderful teaching crew, including students who have previously taken social psychology. As for my own background, the Coursera website already has an overview and links, so I'll be brief. My undergraduate psychology degree came from the University of Minnesota, where I spent many happy hours in dear old Elliott Hall, and my doctoral and postdoctoral work was done at Stanford University with Phil Zimbardo as my graduate advisor. As you can see from this photo, Professor Zimbardo has become something of a superhero in the field, and he's done this course a good deed by generously granting anyone who takes this course free access to his documentary on the famous Stanford Prison Experiment. You'll also have free access to several other online videos. A great video entitled The Abilene Paradox. In a later lecture, I'll talk about what the paradox is. It's really, really fascinating. Stanley Milgram's classic film Obedience, and an ABC News primetime follow-up. A PBS documentary with surprising research on what makes us happy, and just as important, what doesn't. 2 animated guest lectures. The first, called Secrets from the Science of Persuasion, is a joint lecture by 2 world-class experts on the topic, and the second is on empathy and the power of outrospection, of getting to know yourself not just through introspection, but through the lives of other people. And of course, much, much more. One unique aspect of the course is the large number of individuals and organizations contributing free materials, beginning with David Myers of Hope College and Mike Sugarman of McGraw-Hill, who are allowing us to use 2 outstanding textbooks authored by Professor Myers. Here are just some of the contributors. Please see our course page for a more complete list, and I'll acknowledge others as the course unfolds. These groups have been just incredibly generous. Another unique aspect of the course is that we'll be using resources from Social Psychology Network, the world's largest online community devoted to social psychology. In a later video, I'll give you a tour of the network, which I founded in 1996, long time ago now, and which has had over 250 million page views since then. In that video, I'll describe some features that I think would be of special interest to members of the class, and I'll invite you to join the network. Coursera and Social Psychology Network have teamed up to create some wonderful new resources that I think that you'll like. You can see that the network is very excited to meet you. One other aspect of the course that makes it a bit unique is that we'll begin with a snapshot quiz to take a picture of your thinking before being exposed to the lectures and assigned readings. That way you'll be able to compare your answers with the results of research that we discuss later. In other words, you'll be able to privately view your own quiz answers right in the lecture videos, a new feature that Coursera created just for our class, and as far as I know, something that's never been done before in an online course. And when the course ends, the snapshot quiz will also help you see how much your psychology expertise has changed. You know, it's easy to say that psychology is just common sense, but when you dig deeper, there are all sorts of questions in which you can think of good reasons why the answer might be yes, and equally good reasons why it might be no. In dating and marriage, do opposites attract? Does punching a pillow reduce aggression? Do women fall in love faster than men? Is it true that money can't buy happiness? That's where social psychology comes in. It's the scientific study of how people think about, influence, and relate to one another. It uses many of the same experimental methods found in other branches of science. It uses many of the same techniques for data analysis. And the results of these investigations are typically published in peer-reviewed research journals. And as long as we're talking about research, I should also mention that from time to time in these videotaped lectures, I'm going to pause the action to ask you a question. It might be to predict research findings before I share them with you, just to take a guess. Or it might be to ask you about something covered in the lecture, just to make sure that you're following the material. It might even be to ask you a question that doesn't have a right or wrong answer, just to stimulate your thinking, help you think about a topic actively rather than passively watching the videos. Let me just turn out the lights for a moment and give you an example. If you're like most people, you answered yes to this question. Not everyone does, but most people do. What's interesting is that if you give a different set of people the opposite research finding, that is, that attractive people are seen as more intelligent, most people, again, say that that's what they would have guessed. Why? What's going on here? Well, it's something known as hindsight bias, or the I knew it all along effect, and it's covered in this week's assigned readings. It's the tendency for people to see things as more obvious in hindsight after they already know what the outcome is. The moral of the story with respect to social psychology findings is that whether they're about attractiveness or anything else, they're a whole lot harder to predict when you don't already know what the answer is. And that's what makes it interesting. That's what makes it worth studying. So if you want to know, for example, whether attractiveness is associated with people seeing you as more intelligent, or you want to know whether opposites attract, stick around and you'll learn about that and many other research findings throughout this course. That's the deal. That's the deal. If you commit yourself to a few hours each week for the duration of the course, rather than picking and choosing particular topics or particular videos and readings, if you take it as a package, I promise that I will do everything possible to make this course worth your valuable time. How will it work? That's the subject of our next video. I'll see you there.